Greetings, innovators and leaders. This is AI for the C-Suite, your compass for navigating the exponential age. I'm Chad Harvey, and we're here to bring you cutting-edge insights on AI tailored specifically for middle-market organizations. Buckle up as we embark on a journey through the transformative world of artificial intelligence. My guest today is Ross Stockdale, owner and fractional CMO of Thunderstock Marketing, as well as host of the Thunderstock Show. Ross is a passionate and experienced fractional chief marketing officer, or CMO. He's dedicated to empowering small and medium-sized service businesses to scale and thrive. In today's dynamic market, he understands that the path to growth is not just about marketing. It's about strategically overcoming specific challenges that often hinder progress. Ross, welcome to AI for the C-Suite.
Chad, I am beyond excited for this opportunity to speak with you on the AI for the C-Suite podcast and talk about all things AI as they relate to mid-market businesses.
We are going to have some fun today because you are in a unique seat as a fractional CMO. You get a behind-the-scenes sneak peek at a lot of different organizations. But let's kind of level set the conversation here. And why don't you tell me and our listeners about your journey into the world of AI over the last couple of years and how you've seen it evolve, and we'll go from there.
So I'm proud to say, finally, that my journey into artificial intelligence started, 15 years ago when I was in college. And when I went to school, I had the mantra of follow your heart and things will work out. So study that which is you find most interesting and passionate about. And to my parents' chagrin and probable disappointment or confusion, I chose philosophy. So as a philosophy major, there's ton philosophy of something. I focused on philosophy of mind, so cognitive science. There's some psychology aspect. I also did philosophy of literature, so English literature. What that basically meant was I got to read a lot of interesting books, listen to a lot of interesting topics, and there was, at this time, there's this little known speaker in the AI space that was my first foray into futurism was Ray Kurzweil. So we spent several weeks in school, learning about Ray Kurzweil and, that sort of branch of AI. And some of the course material that I learned in college was books like Kill Decision, which is a book about what happens when AI has these drones and they can go in and use for the application of war. And it was very Terminator-esque. And the Turing test was something that we learned about quite a bit. And I thought, oh, the Turing test and chess, oh man, the future is now. But boy, oh boy, in the last 15 years, has that really changed? And my experience with AI as of late has been generated around how it affects marketing. And when ChatGPT first came into existence, or when people were pontificating what AI was going to do to marketing specifically, it said, oh, all marketers are going to lose their jobs. And at first there was this fear, and then it was almost like the stages of dealing with grief. And finally there's acceptance, like you need to learn AI and be able to use it as a tool. And it's just like any other tool, like the keyboard or the computer or the internet. It's like the internet didn't replace marketing. It just drastically changed what it looked like. So that is, sort of my coming to artificial intelligence. I always knew it was coming. I was probably less afraid of it than others just because I'm a geek. And so I've had the pleasure working with some people such as you, Chad, to understand more. And I love the quote that we often fear what we don't understand. So the more that people understand and probably should sign up for AI for the C-Suite paid membership, the less they will fear and have confidence in being able to use AI for their marketing applications in the future.
I appreciate the shout out there for AI for the C-Suite. We welcome all comers with C in their title. You outlined a number of really important points there, and I love the issue that you surfaced regarding fear, because when we look back on periods of massive historical change, there's always fear, right? I think it's a natural human tendency, and your background in philosophy likely gives you a fairly unique perspective. And if we're talking about fear and we're talking about change and we're talking about the impact on the marketing efforts of organizations and where this goes, my mind immediately goes to the idea of Google Zero, right? This idea that we are in a very, very not too distant future going to be experiencing a situation where Google and other internet search engines stop sending traffic through to third-party sites. When I talk about this in some of my workshops, people look at me blankly. It's like they either don't get it or they don't want to get it, because we've been so accustomed over the last 10, 15, 20 years to the idea of search engine optimization and all of the games that get played around that. But if traffic's no longer going to be directed to sites and the answers you need are served up to you, I think that there are some massive sea changes afoot. And I'm just curious, because I know you've been thinking about some of this. What do you think this means, and where do you think the marketing industry is going to go if and when a change like that occurs?
Love that question, specifically because SEO is my first foray into marketing, and because I found it to be the perfect blend between writing and business. And there's also the AI mysterious technological aspect, because you have to understand Google's algorithm. So what I want to say first on that answer is, for those of you out there that look at content creation and SEO as lead gen and not as trust generation, you need to have a paradigm shift. So when you write only for Google's algorithm, you are basically at the whim of the next Google update, and that's been the game. So I've been lucky enough in my coming of age and my experience with marketing to be a marketer that has helped businesses to go online. Businesses that have been around for 90 years and have never been either selling online or focused on a digital presence. And my first full-time W-2 marketing position, I brought a business that was around for 90 plus years to the online space, and there was a lot of hesitation and skepticism and fear around it. And what ended up happening is we grew sales by 50% in 1 year by just going online. So that fear turned into excitement, then it turned into almost addiction, like do more, you know. So what I the tactics and strategies that happened 10 years ago need to adapt with the changing of the times. The way that Google has started, I think it's important to preface this answer with a brief history on um, uh, the Google ranking algorithm. No one really knows. There's hundreds of factors for ranking, but I will tell you that 10 years ago, when you thought of SEO, there was 10 blue links on the first page, and there might have been some ads. And if you weren't on the top one or two or three of the blue links, you're missing out on somewhere up north of 80% of all the click traffic. So it was incredibly competitive. Now you all people are already, if they're not aware of it, they should be, that there are what they call zero click responses, which are either it's a Google Map listing, or it's a which is called Google Business Profile now. There are answer boxes, which you just click the caret to get the answer you want. So Google's been trending to be, Google's job is to answer the question or the query of the searcher to the best of their ability with a satisfactory answer. There's helpful content updates, which really slammed traffic for SEO for small businesses that were just doing blogging for the sake of, a tactic to generate leads, where companies like Wikipedia and Quora and Reddit, with user generated content with tons and tons of traffic, are getting up all of the results. So what used to be the magic formula was however many backlinks, one backlink equals one vote. And much like an election, you win enough votes, you win the spot on the top of the page. Now, the way that Google is trending towards working is whoever answers the question the best has the highest likelihood. And it's also specific to if they're logged into Gmail, and that user's preferences and that user's history. So it's much, much more tailored to the user, and all businesses that keep the user first, like think of Amazon with largest variety, best customer service, their return policy, their shipping policy. Like Google is going towards, okay, what is the best way to answer the question for the user? So what it looks like for these Google search is great for the user, terrible for the marketers that don't want to change.
Mm-hmm.
So if your sole business strategy relies on getting traffic from those 10 blue links, so to speak, you need to do other things. You still should create content, but you should have the goal to be creating trust, answering questions, and being absolutely of the utmost service to your potential site visitors, not just Google algorithms.
Mm-hmm. I loved the phrase that you started out with there. Instead of lead gen, it was trust generation, and that really reminds me of the concept that we're not in a B2C world or even a B2B world. We're in a B2Me world. It's very personalized, and I see an awful lot of indicators, whether you're looking at some of the negative implications, like the dramatic cost in spear phishing types of attacks, or if you look at the positive impact of AI on customization of different personas and the ability to tailor content to individuals and to organizations more specifically. I wonder what that looks like as we go forward, because it's no longer and I think Salesforce is going to be taking a stab at this with their new AI that they're rolling out later this fall. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter if we're talking about Salesforce or somebody else. There are going to be an awful lot of use cases and applications where we're able to customize and tailor content and messaging and create value for individuals and their organizations. And I wonder what you think the role of a marketer looks like with respect to that custom bespoke content as AI continues to deploy. And what do you think that means for somebody like yourself, or somebody that is a full-time CMO at a larger middle market organization?
So I'm going to lead with a quote that I love to share, is that you can never over empathize with your target audience.
I love it.
So when marketers rely on, a tool or a trick, then they become what I call like a one trick pony, or every problem looks like a nail because I just have a hammer. And what you need to look at is, um, every person has a problem, and the more deeply you can understand the person and their pain points,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter. Like, you just have a wider array of tools. So what that looks like for marketing and profession, specifically when it comes to these custom bespoke um, personalization things, there's twofold. There's you know the platform limitations. So as Chad, as you know, with your background in the legal industry, you know that with new technology, it starts at the Wild West, and then it becomes regulation, then it becomes normalization, and like there's rules. And what's interesting, platforms, I'll say like Facebook, for example, where if you're on your cell phone, you're pretty much always logged into Facebook. And when you're browsing on your cell phone, it knows, oh, this person's profile with these interests and post about these topics views these types of things. So there was a gold rush in the 20 teens for Facebook ads being one of the most cost-effective ways. And now, what's happening is like the regulation bodies are being like, "Hey, Facebook, everyone knows that Big Brother's watching, and it's kind of creeping people out that you can, almost read their mind, seemingly." So there has been a drastic, what they call CPC, or cost per conversion, on Facebook. It's becoming more expensive, more difficult, because you don't have that "I can read your mind" type thing.
Mhm.
So what I want to warn C-suite about when it comes to these AI things is, look at it like, learn from Facebook.
Yep.
So you will have a dramatic increase in your marketing conversions and your ability to serve your target audience. But don't rely just on the trick, because once that regulation changes, where, if and when, right, I predict that it will, that there becomes some limitations and guardrails on how personalized you can get. Like, consent matters, so just keep in mind, like, use it, improve your business, but you need to be constantly learning the trends and the legal ramifications, so that you protect your business in the future and you don't become reliant on it. So don't be afraid of it. Use it. It will help to serve your clients. And the way that it's going to look for marketers as well is it's going to be, my prediction, um, sort of like how airplanes and automobiles became adopted, where, Lewis and Clark traveled from Missouri to the West Coast the old fashioned way. Now I can book a plane ticket and fly there in like a day from start to finish. So you're going to be able to do things much, much faster. And with that, it's like if you don't learn the new tools, then you're probably going to be beholden to your competitors that do.
Hmm.
So whether you like it or not, doesn't matter your personal opinion. You have to at least be problem aware and situationally aware. Um, and again, you don't need to use the tools for every problem, but if you don't know how to, or which practical implications and use cases, and if you don't know enough about it, you're putting yourself at a major disadvantage, and you probably, as time progresses, will um, go the wayside of like a dinosaur. So
Hmm.
that's a pretty aggressive take on marketing, but I've seen it happen. So um,
No, I think
and
you're spot on there. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you said something that I wanted to drill in on. You talked about the idea of the evolution of regulations, and you talked about, and you didn't use these words, but essentially threading the needle on privacy issues. And you gave the Facebook example, and what came to mind for me was what I'm going to call the ick factor, right? So let's say I'm the recipient of a very tailored, very targeted marketing message. And I look at that and I'm like, oh, wow, they seem to know an awful lot about me. How would you advise organizations and marketers to thread that needle and to balance between useful, valuable content and messaging that is personalized versus going too far and kind of avoiding that ick factor, if you will?
that's a great question. So when I look at marketing, a lot of businesses make the mistake of they're talking at their target audience.
Mm-hmm.
When I say talking at, it means that they're speaking a message and they are presenting that message and they're hoping it lands and it's all about them.
Right.
And a friend of mine who's a sales leader says, "Don't we over your audience. Don't make it about you." Then there's talking to someone, and when you're talking to someone, that is typically thought of as like a more intimate, like, oh, it's directly towards you. And I don't think I'm talking to someone as the ick factor of it's like, hey, I don't know you, but you seem to be stalking me, and I'm starting to get my heebie-jeebies on. So talking to someone that you don't know is much like a cold call,
Mm.
where there's even AI, like auto dialers now, like they'll be like, Chad, are you there? And it's like, yeah, who's this? Oh, it's me, Ross. It's like, okay, I don't know a Ross. Oh, I'm just calling because blah, blah, blah. And then they go right in. And it's like that icks people out
Mhm.
because you're pretending to know them and you know enough about them through your marketing tools and your research that a lot of answers of their phone are just like, you know what, go to spam. Like you try to trick me, instantly turned off. Then the final way, and I've timed this back to empathy, is talking with someone. So
Mhm.
having a conversation. And it's like, if you know enough about somebody and you're a savvy enough marketer in your communication strategy, you can create messaging that gets them to respond and then consent, right? I think
Mhm.
consent is a key topic that needs to be understood with AI. It's like if you create messaging that's great so they feel it resonates with them and then they interact with you, now you're talking with someone because it's a two-way street. So interactivity, I think we didn't talk about this, but these chat bots that you can create through large LLMs,
Mhm.
where they know enough about Chad, right? So you can basically make yourself a chatbot on your website, and that chatbot you have confidence would say Chad things, like it would respond in a way. That type of thing, I feel like is going to do the reverse of ick people out.
Mhm.
It's going to provide better customer service, and
Mhm.
it because what it's doing is talking with the people, and it's acting as a good steward of your brand or your company, versus like I have this video, this like robotic or not even a video, but this robotic message that knows everything about you before you ever opted in or consented. So it's also, respecting the user, I think is going to be super important to keep top of mind.
Mhm.
Um, and how to do that is the tough part, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You just said something that reminded me of an article I recently read where an agency couldn't get a hold of the CEO client. And they had an awful lot of recorded conversations from their internal dialogue with the client, as well as this client's publicly available speeches and articles that they've written. So they actually threw all this information into a chatbot because they needed to be able to start to craft some different materials and do some different things. And again, they couldn't get a hold of the CEO. And as I recall, the article said that they got fairly good responses to the questions after they had trained this chatbot up on the CEO's content, which allowed them to move forward with a higher level of confidence. Then when that individual returned, they ran some of the different ideas they'd had past them. And it was like, oh, yeah, this is great. I would have definitely said to do this. And I thought that's a really interesting application in the advertising and the marketing space, because you're not trying to reach an audience in as much as channel the ideas and position yourselves so that you don't have to redo work or go down dead ends prior to presenting something to the client. So I thought that was very interesting as well.
Looking at AI as a tool for efficiency is a much better frame than looking at AI as a end all be all solution for marketing.
Yeah.
So one quick other story that I can tell from my own personal experiences working in marketing agencies. So there was a period of time in the late 20 teens, early 2020s, where I had a team of marketers. There was 12 people that did marketing production on my team that I led.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say between my time and the time of my content writers and all the work that we put in labor to do one blog post, it was to the ballpark with salaries and just time investment, call it 12 hours of collective labor.
Mm-hmm.
And the content was great. Like I think that the end result was excellent, but it was incredibly intensely manual. Now with AI and with working with people like Chad, I've had um, the basically the process that I would do with those writers and with myself to make sure that the end result, the blog content was exceptionally good. Um, I've now whittled that down to 30 to 45 minutes. So when you use AI in that way, you can do, get, I mean, in this instance, you're quite honestly saving, um, 90+% of the labor hours, so with a very similar result. But the last 20% or the last 10% still needs to have that human touch. You
Right.
can't just copy paste a blog post out of ChatGPT and hope that and like think it's going to be getting on the top of Google. But what you can do is take a lot of the formatting and a lot of the background research and a lot of the outlining and the drafting and all the things that go into the process. You can shortcut that, train it on your LLMs on like what on how you wanted to write, and then you take the human element, and then now through either through conversational prompts and also the human touch of rewriting it and editing it. A lot of content marketers are going to find themselves being AI revisers and editors
Yeah.
and prompt engineers, then staring at a blank white piece of paper and then just writing it out.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at AI that way, I think will help marketers survive and thrive in the digital age and have the proper expectation.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point of view there, and I liked the phrasing you ended with there, the proper expectation, because it is all about setting expectations. And with respect to the AI generated content, let's say it's 80% AI and 20% based on the human plus the human editor. I think that's a very valuable way to use those AI tools. I do wonder what that means, though, with respect to the screening tools, because we're already seeing a whole variety of, again, they're AI based, but they're AI based tools to screen out AI generated content. and I have seen some very mediocre AI generated content, but then I've seen some very good, high quality, to your point, AI generated content. When you couple that content with the training and with that human element, human in the loop. And I wonder, and I don't know that you or anyone else has the answer to this, but I do wonder what the future looks like when you've got AI tools that are screening out certain types of AI generated content. Will they also screen out the piece that's a little bit more personalized? How sophisticated will that look? I don't know. I think it's an interesting question.
And back to the legal implications, I spoke with
Yeah.
somebody who's a media company founder, and it's like, who owns the rights of the AI generated content?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the person who prompted it? Is it Microsoft, through owning Claude? Is it Google through Gemini?
Right.
Like, who owns the content? So I like another, I love using these quips and phrases. It's like a great artist, a good artist creates, a great artist steals. So it, it really comes into, in order to make something patent worthy or trademark worthy, you have to change the core thing enough
Right.
so that it becomes its own thing. Because, all trends and fashion, even hairstyles, they come and they go, right? Like the
Right.
mullet made a comeback. Like, who would have thought that from the 80s? But it looks different. So the key is to not only cover your ground on a legal basis, and not only try and do the delicate dance with um, not getting flagged for AI generated content, or you know it used to be duplicate content. There used to be people that would scrape a blog post, like, I'm just going to say exactly what they said, copy paste. Like, and there's ways around that. The key is to, create your own value add and change it enough so that it is yours. Um, and that will always be a human thing.
Yeah.
Thinking that AI will replace human intelligence, it's the same thing as saying, cars will replace horses.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure. I mean, there's still use cases for horses. If you're a rancher out in Wyoming, good luck doing your job with just a car, or you might need to use a horse for that instance. So eh, nuance is key,
Yeah.
and remembering that all good work needs to pass the human test is also key.
Indeed. Well, I think the other thing that's key here, and you just shown a spotlight behind the scenes here at AI for the C-suite. We are the mullet of podcasts. It's business up front and it's party in the back. In all seriousness, though, what I am interested, because you talked about the changing nature of the marketing work, and you specifically called out the idea of prompt engineering and how this work is going to look different in the future. What do you think? And I know you're approaching this again from the perspective of someone trained as a philosophy major in your undergraduate work. What do you think the skill set required for marketing is going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years? And let's say I'm a college level student entering my freshman year. I'm really excited about the idea of marketing. What should I be studying, either as a major or as a minor? Are there any ideas that you've got around how the skill set and the requirements of this line of work and this profession are going to change? How do you start to future proof yourself in terms of your adaptability for this?
I love that question. I love the question of what would I tell myself, 50, however many years ago when I entered college, knowing what I know now. It's sort of that same kind of question.
Yeah.
But to people that are going to school that want to, do marketing, right, and learn to keep up with the digital age, it's like, when I look back at what marketing was before AI, and even when marketing became more primarily digital, right? So much, like, every year online sales take up a larger and larger part of the global economy. Before it was less than 10% was e-commerce. Now it's a lot closer to 50-50. I don't know the exact breakdown, right?
Hmm.
So we see that trend continuing. It's like, the other majors you should look at are information technology, computer science. Like, learn computers and learn how coding and technology works
Mm.
so that you can be a better AI prompt engineer. When I was growing up, it's wild how many English majors were at my small liberal arts school that became marketers. So they were English majors, they were, professional writing. A lot of them are communication. So the core facets, like I try to simplify marketing in terms of when you create a creative asset, it has to be one of three things. It has to either be written, an image, or spoken. So you can either be great at art. So if you're good at digital design, like that used to be you're amazing with a paintbrush or a pencil. Now it's like Adobe Creative Suite or Canva or these like platforms. So think of AI like an Adobe Creative Suite for general purpose marketing. It's a tool that you need to learn. But whether you're into art or you're into film and videography, what like marketing means so many things. You could be a speaker and only do podcasts and only do, video content. And I think another part of, AI's progression and what we touched on before is meeting the users where they are, is that users used to like, so think of the company BuzzFeed. That was just blogs that were hyper specific and niche and driving traffic from Facebook to BuzzFeed. But now it's like the companies that are crushing it on advertising and social channels are doing like short form video content. It's like the new medium. But really, at the end of the day, if you don't have the empathy and you don't research, read, write, speak, present ideas clearly, like that medium will always change. I mean, I don't know how it will change outside of, audio, video, image, or text, but keeping up with, what's working now, what tools do you need to use to create the thing, and probability and statistics is another marketing major I think people should do, because you're always going to want to understand data. And there's a whole section from marketing analysts that needs to learn how to, basically be a wizard with Excel. And now with Claude and ChatGPT, people like me can be much better with Excel than before. So for those that are listening, that are in the C-suite, I don't want to just focus on marketing. I think if you're looking at the question of how can AI affect your financial, how can AI affect your sales process, how can AI affect your human resources and your data collection, like those questions are equally as valuable. But when it comes to marketing, which is my most experienced bread and butter, it's learning about how this technology touches on all the other ways humans communicate in mass.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the majors, to answer your major question, it's like IT, computer science, statistics, and still learn how to read, write, and speak.
That's a great answer, Ross. And it also begs a follow-up question here. Do you think, based on everything that you just outlined, that the future of folks in your profession is more generalist or more specialist?
What a wonderful question. So
we're throwing all kinds of curveballs today.
So as a fractional CMO, it's going to be even more generalist. Mm-hmm. So I'm finding part of my role is almost like a CTO, figuring out how to use these technologies to impact the greater business, whether it's the sales department or how to use some of these tools to help with the accounting department. So that's just what I'm finding myself in my day-to-day currently doing. Mm-hmm. But CMO, so it will do both. It will make specialists have to become even more of a specialist. Before, social media manager just meant do all the social media. Now it could mean I have a friend and person that I hire who only does short form content for construction companies and focuses only on Instagram. Like that is one of the most niche down services, and he's beyond capacity, beyond full. And his results against some of these generalist companies that have been around since the dot-com bubble, the late 90s, he crushes them, and he's a very small agency. And it's because he's so specialized and so niche down. And not only the industry is niched, but the service he provides within the industry is niched. And it's not just social media. It's, I do this specific task. And for people like me that are generalists, you need to get these specialists in place and understand, there's more options, and each, it's the same thing. The cost to entry is lower, but the investment to become like the best becomes almost higher. It's like it's more competitive across the board, but then it's never been less competitive when you niche down and specialize.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic answer. And I'm seeing more and more organizations, regardless of their size, but more and more organizations in the middle market space going to the specialists, going to the outside consultants, using fractional experts to supplement, even if they have a full-fledged, say, marketing or sales department. There seems to be an understanding now that we can't have all of the in-house experts that we need. And I wonder, from your perspective, as someone that gets hired as an outside expert, what are the questions that you would ask yourself if you were interviewing you for a position with an organization as a fractional expert? Are there a couple, two, three kind of go-to questions that you think help C-suite executives and leaders get to the bottom? And I'm asking this from the perspective of right now I'm seeing an awful lot of products and services and consultants running around saying, we do AI, we've got AI this. Well, when I peek under the hood under 45 seconds, no, you don't. So I'm approaching it from that perspective. How do you separate the real deal from the hypesters, if you will?
So the questions I would ask if I was a C-suite leader and I was looking for help, whether it was for AI or for marketing, would be, what problem am I trying to solve? So like, what is their goal? What is their purpose? What is their mission for this whatever role? Who do I need to solve it? No. Is this a strategic leadership problem? Is this we don't have anyone button seat doing the task on repeat that's clearly defined with clear outcomes? So who do we need? What problem are they trying to solve? And why do we think this? So I think people, by their nature, question all beliefs except for those they hold most dearly. So for these companies that expect a full-time CMO or marketing director to sit in their seat from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and commute an hour each way, put yourself in that person's shoes and either change your compensation structure to match with the way that the world is today, or change your expectation, or change who you're trying to look for, right? So for a fractional like me, I stepped away from a highly compensated business where I had to be there all the time. And I was always plugged in to the point where I'm on family vacations and even in the delivery room for my child and I'm handling work. I was highly compensated. My decision is I'm just going to choose a lifestyle nowadays where I can work remotely, do what I need to do, and not be, just married to the physical presence of this business. I'm not the only one that thinks that way. There's other people like that, but it's like, in order for me to, I was asked this question recently, Chad. It's like, what would it take for you to sit in the seat from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m.? I was like, about 5 times the compensation that you're offering. So I can do it fractionally for the price tag that you're at. But if you want me to physically be there and give up everything else, you're like way off. So, and that's just me, and everyone's different, but I think
it's not just you though.
Right.
There are some very real generational differences in terms of expectations about work and labor. And I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but
go ahead.
I did want to make that point. It's not just you. I think what you just outlined is very representative of what I hear from leaders and what I hear from, I'm going to call it kind of the sub 45, sub 40-year-old professional crowd. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm, it's not just me that feels that way, but I'm saying my story is that, and what I've heard other people say too is like, if people are married to the idea that they have to have button seat, then they have to be accepting of what that person looks like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they have to also accept it might be a lot harder to fill that seat, right? Because you're finding a unicorn and I'll be honest, one of the ways business has changed with not just AI, but with technology is the globalization of the labor force. Yeah. So tons of companies are offshoring because it's cheaper. It's not just manufacturing like it was in the 80s and 90s. It's like skilled labor. Mm-hmm. So if you want somebody in your physical geographic area as a leader and you really want that, and you're committed to it, you have to make the compensation, the offer appealing for that person to do that. And if you want the skill and the talent, you also have to then become flexible with either globalization or remote or hybrid or whatever that looks like.
Great points. And it's interesting. The way you framed that just made me realize something that I hadn't thought about before, which is I think the nature of distributed work and the growing acceptance of fractional employees and outside experts within organizations has in some ways started to pave the way for semi-autonomous and autonomous AI agents in the future. We are already, as an organization, starting to see the value of not having everybody under one roof, let alone not having just a full roster of full-time employees. And I think in some ways that may prime the pump for a greater level of acceptance and a faster level of acceptance as we go to level 2, level 3, level 4 tape AI systems. If you're referring to the ChatGPT 5-level classification system or whatever framework you're looking at. I mean, regardless, we know the technology is continuing to evolve in capability and especially in its autonomy and its ability to execute more complex tasks. So thank you for that. That was an interesting insight you just helped me have.
Right on.
All right. So let's see if we can land this plane here in the next couple minutes. Let me throw you one other, not real curveball question, but kind of insightful question about the way that you work. What are some of the tools that you have found in AI land that are most useful for you in the day-to-day work that you do and the work that you perform for clients?
So, marketers are notorious for having tons of screenshots in their camera roll. And what I think that most skilled labor, marketers like myself now are notorious for is having at least one or two tabs open with ChatGPT 4.0 or Claude. I actually do both. So I have the paid membership for both. And what I'll sometimes do is be like an intermediary, like a three-way conversation. And I have conversations with these tools on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So $40 a month for both of these subscriptions is one of the easiest investments. Some of the other tools that are super interesting, they have specific AIs for email marketing, specific AIs for YouTube marketing. Even Snapchat has their own AI, which is adopted by by many Gen Z. Not necessarily saying it for marketing profession, but most of these tools, they're doing their darndest to get out and have their own specific AI type companion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily, I favor Claude or ChatGPT over the other. It's that I want to learn which AI assistant tool for which marketing task or platform is the right one. And then if I have conversations with several of them, it's like don't just use ChatGPT for everything. Like use the suite of AI tools and through conversation and like prompting, like figure out what is the right blend or mix, and then use it appropriately for each. But
Perfect.
that's how I use it on a day-to-day basis.
Man, Ross, it's like you're channeling me. I answered this question in an AMA quite recently. Somebody would say, well, what's the best tool? That's the wrong question. It's what's the best tool for the result that you want to achieve, right? So,
Right.
Well said. All right, sir. I really appreciate you sharing your insights with us today, Ross. This was a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed it. As we wrap up, what is one piece of advice that you'd give to C-suite execs looking to leverage AI in their organizations, be it marketing or just general advice? What's one piece of advice that you'd share with them?
So my one piece of advice would be that every organization that wants to grow beyond being like a self-employed solopreneur, one man, when you have an organization, your organization needs to be familiar with artificial intelligence and the technological trends, but not necessarily like the CEO of a $50 million company does not need to be the digital plumber, so to speak. Doesn't need to be the one that's the expert. They need to be problem aware and just know that this is what is out there in the landscape and the ramifications. But they also need to be aware of what they don't know and hire for the gaps. So if you have no one in your organization, whether it's a contractor or an employee, that is at least an expert or competent or staying up to date, that is going to be one of the positions you need to fill. And the AI should touch on most boxes of an organizational chart in the future. But for now, you at least need to be problem aware and find someone like AI for the C-suite to become problem aware and have a repository resource of who you can call when these problems arise. Just like you wouldn't go into business without an accountant or without a lawyer or without a banker, you shouldn't go into business anymore without someone who knows AI.
Well said. Ross, I know that you are a busy man. You've got a podcast, you've got a lot of different clients. You're constantly moving and shaking. For our listeners who want to learn a little bit more about your work or get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I'm active on LinkedIn. It's J. Ross Stockdale. That's my LinkedIn profile. You can find my website, thunderstockmarketing.com. Happy to book a call with you if you'd like to. And then my podcast, if you want to listen and learn more about the conversations I have and what I'm about, it's the Thunderstock Show.
I love it. That's such a strong brand, the Thunderstock Show. Well done. Ross, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. This was absolutely fantastic. And for our listeners, thank you all for tuning into AI for the C-Suite, where we're committed to helping middle market leaders thrive during the exponential age. If you found value in today's discussion, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on all the socials, and visit our site, aifortheCsuite.com. Join us next time as we continue to unlock the potential of AI for your organization. And until then, keep your algorithms running, your leadership evolving, and your AI in check. Take care, everybody.